Page 75, Little Brown Jug. On page 74, they're introducing you to the F major scale and the key of F major. Quickly review, we have C major, no sharps or flats, all white keys. We've had G major, one sharp, it's all white keys except for the F. The F's are F sharp. Now we get F major. It's all white keys except for one flat. It's got one flat in it, and that is a B flat. If you look at the flat sign at the beginning of the stabs, you'll see in each clef that if you had a note on that line or space, it would be a B. It applies to all B's, no matter where they're at, but that's what it means. So at this time, it'd be important, if you wanted, go do the F major scale video of mine and learn the F major scale. The fingering on that's a little bit different in the right hand than the other scales. So you have to be careful because the black note throws everything off. But it's a good scale to learn. I'll let you read all that junk on page 74 on your own. I'll cover it. For Little Brown Jug, they're introducing you to 2 more musical symbols for you to learn and memorize forever. Now, first one is an 8th rest. Well, you've had 8th note, and you already know that for every note there's a rest. So yeah, you got 8th rests. It's the same as an 8th note, it's just be quiet. And it looks like that. It's got that little line and that little flag, weird flag looking thing. But you got to be careful with 8th rests. That little flag looking thing has to go off to the left, not the right. So if you're going to draw these, make sure it goes to the left. And this is what I was talking about in an earlier video about quarter rests, is that squiggly thing. Well, 100 years ago, they had a different symbol for a quarter rest. And that is similar to an 8th rest, except the flag goes off to the right. That would be a quarter rest. So if you're reading old music and you run across these symbols, you got to be careful which way the flag aimed, because that tells you, is it a quarter rest or 8th rest? And it can get confusing. Been there, done that, so be careful on that. The other symbol is an accent sign. I've already been talking about natural accents. An accent is when you give it a little extra. It's just a hair louder. It's a little, I call it oomph. A little extra oomph, a little extra power. Now a piano cannot give a true accent. It's not designed for it, can't do it, forget it. Ain't gonna happen. So the best we can do is we just play it a little louder. That's all we can do. Not a lot louder, a little louder. There's different kinds of accents, and they have different loudnesses, so careful. This is the simplest one. It's just a little louder. The idea with an accent is, with any note, start to finish, so I don't know which way you're going, so I don't know which is start and finish. We'll say this is start and this is finish, all right? So you're starting a note and the pitch comes up, and then it would go across, and then when the note's over, the pitch goes down. We call this the attack, and that's the release. And this is where it sustains. Well, with an accent, you're only increasing the attack. It goes, the attack is louder, and then it comes back down to where it should be for the rest of the note, and then it dies off. So the attack, the accent is only for the attack. It's ba, and you can do this on a wind instrument or a bowed instrument, some instrument where you can really sustain and control the level, the volume of the note. But on a percussive instrument like a piano or a guitar or some of those, all you can do is start the note and then the instrument takes over. So we just play an accent a little louder, and that's the best we can do. You'll see the accent above or below the note. That's not important, it's there. But on a chord, it applies to the whole chord. Like, look at the last, at the first line, the very last note, the half note, that has an accent. But each hand has an accent, each clef, but there's only one accent given. But it applies to both notes, is what I'm saying, because you're going to play both notes the same. And just give it a little extra oomph. So the last measure in the right hand there is here. Give it a little extra oomph. In the left hand, it's here. Not a lot extra oomph, that was too much. So it's here. Just a little extra. And that's the best we can do with accents on piano. Now go down to the third line. You see the accents in the right hand? Drop the wrist on these. on those, and then the others are not accented. Give that one, and then the hint. Now there is an interpretive style. There's a lot of interpretive styles, but one you need to be aware of, because band or conductors or orchestra conductors, they have their own styles, ways of interpreting the music. And you'll run across this. I've run across this with a couple of conductors already. And that is when they get accented notes like that, they want you to automatically separate the notes to bring out the accent more. So in the third line down, they would separate this. That's an interpretation. Don't think, it's not a rule. You don't have to do that. It's just a way of interpreting accented notes. That's it. Just so you're aware of that, because you're going to get a lot of differences of opinion on how things should be interpreted. Music, you get a lot of difference of opinion on just about everything. I think it's fascinating, actually. Now, in Little Brown Jug, let's look at this over. 4/4 time. Key of F major. It's got one flat. All the B's are automatically going to be flatted. It's got a pickup beat. It's actually a half a beat because you're coming in on a rest. You'll notice in the left hand, that rest, that's an eighth rest because it's equal to an eighth note. Okay. So it's like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So coming in on and of 4. 4 and 1. And that's what that's about. Melody is the top note in the right hand. So, top note. Now, if you're struggling to play one hand louder than the others, you can forget what I'm about to say. But if you're getting that pretty well, you're ready for another challenge, then let's go forward. Gotta learn to do it eventually. And that is, when you have multiple notes played at the same time in a hand, go over to the last two measures of the first line in the right hand, here. The melody is the top note. Can you play that note louder than the others? That's what we want to hear. I'm just putting a little more weight on that finger. Because I play by weight, I just put more weight on that finger. And that takes a little bit of practice. But if you can, by all means, do it. If you're going to go very far in piano, you're going to need to learn to do it anyway. But again, if you're struggling with this, then forget that. Just play the notes. Do the best you can. Generally speaking, I try and accept the fingering that the method books have. But again, there's a lot of different fingering styles. And sometimes I like to give you other ideas. Alternatives, and it's up to you. You take a pencil and you pencil them in, and then you experiment and you pick what you want to do and you stick with that. Well, here this black note is a bit inconvenient because at the beginning it's okay, you're in this position and here, but then they want you to come up here and second finger and put the thumb on that black note. Well, if you have really fat fingers, that doesn't work, because it just doesn't work very well, And there's been professional pianists with fat fingers. They have problems. Well, you have to adjust the fingering to allow for that. As far as the fingering style I use, I don't put a thumb on a black note unless I have to. But if I have to, okay, I do it. My fingers fit. I can do that. But otherwise, I won't do it. Well, here, we don't have to put a thumb on a black key here. In the first line on this, I'm going to stay in this position until I get to next to the last measure. I'm just going to stay here. So the first two full measures with the pickup is here. I'm going to stay there, 3, 2. And then I'm going to go here, 2, 5. Now I'm going to come up. And I can do a 1-5, or I can do a 2-5, and then so think about that, where you're just staying in this position actually for the most of the line up until the last measure, and then I can go. Third line's the same. You can figure it the same way. You don't have to do it that way. In fact, in the second line, you can do it similarly like that. The second line. stay there, third finger. Third measure is 2 and 5. And then 5, 2, 5. And then you can do a 1, 5 or 1, 4. It's up to you. I do a 1, 4 and then a 1, 5. Because I'm fancy. There's staccatos you can get over. For the last line, same thing. So you can use second finger on that black note if you want to. There's nothing wrong with putting thumb on it. If you want to figure it the way they're showing it, that's fine. Do it that way. Now on these staccatos, you're going to use a nice light wrist staccato. Hinge at the wrist. And the right. Short staccato. Accent the accent notes. In the left hand, we have start out with the chords here. You're way down here with an F and a C, way down there. And then a B flat and a D. And then your thumb comes back down. Just a light wrist staccato. You can match the right hand with the staccatos, but it's got to be soft because the melody's in the right hand. Then an accent. Now that's really pretty much the left hand. Most of the stuff's in the right hand. So you work out each hand one hand at a time and then get the fingering and the rhythm that you need, and then try putting the hands together. It's a whole nother adventure. And remember at the end of the line, the first line, you got to come back down. That's the end of a phrase. You just lift up, move. They don't have any phrasing mark, but take my word for it, it's the end of a phrase. I mean, you can kind of feel the sentences, where the musical sentences are. Basically, it's each line is a sentence. So you can lift up and move. They give you an eighth rest at the end of the second line. That's handy. Now you have an eighth pickup, a half a beat pickup. So if you look at the last measure, that's got 3, 4 beats in it, 3.5 beats in it. It's missing a half a beat is what I'm saying. And that's okay because the pickup is the other half a beat. So we're fine there. Dynamic wise, well, you're starting out sort of medium loud. Okay, that's melody. And then you're going to gradually increase to the end of the line. Now you're not going to increase a lot. I don't know why you're even increasing. I don't think I would crescendo much until maybe the last couple of measures. And most of that's going to be the last measure. Otherwise, it's going to be... That's where you're headed. And then you come back down, do it again. It's not accented there, but that's still the loudest part. Now you're staying up there and they're accented. They're already loud. The third line, it's loud. It's forte plus an accent. I don't know if that's necessary, but it is. Now come down for the third measure and get loud. Stay loud. Now come down to medium loud. Try and put in the accents if you can. You may have to experiment with them, but don't get loud too soon. Take your time. When you do a crescendo, most of the crescendo part actually should come at the end of it. So the beginning is very gradual. You can hardly tell it. You might be able to tell something's happening, but you can't too much. And then when you get toward the end of it, that's when it really happens. So save it to the end. This says moderately fast. I think I was sort of demonstrating it moderately fast. 1, 2, 3, sort of fast, yeah, whatever. We're going to go slow because I want to check the notes and the rhythms and all that with you. It is repeated at the bottom, so we're going to play the whole thing twice. Oh boy. So let's try it out. I'm going to give us, what, 3.5 counts? Something like that. I'm going to 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1. You come in on the end of 4. 1 and 2 and ready and go. That type of thing. So you starting out here. And here we go. 1 and 2 and ready and go. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Three